pangira galagena nyepamne ne kudukula ibuloke nongoto ni beti sola ibuloke ndato ni betoto
Mingi Congo
Lamin
na
Lamin te jibe min te nyame Lamin
kama na wulo
kono nyinta mo Lamin
pabilenki
muna ngata afamole
haina
ngata ngoto le Fabrama
mingi baba nyola
ngoto le Fabrama
namu jumala kan kuma di ten
Fabrama
jumala mu
ndele bare muso
lunda mana
mo kata
jamani mbere
lindo ko
jamani
bari ngoto man kontande
bari jamani fana na ramudu wa kontan
ngoto minaka ngalamin je fon filitala Lamin jibe nori nyala
lamin ila siran sama ne benki yala so tol sayni no ko mollo ko momo
ngoto
nam
itedinte yalo ne Lamin hakkilo diata bake ngoto anu santeng ministry ko di ngole si suwo ko amanke ko do holi de
si bitun
bagona de
ala ni ko kede namo balo
ala ni na ko na karta bulo be dam ala ni je
ngoto
nam
ngoto mon kontan feren
jamani mu ne keda
ifike Lamin ki wulo ko no nyintay mon ko do fete malo Lamin nyande sila la be la moy kala karango
jamani karamol be soron ne ko fasita wulo ko nako
baba
karamol ma soron ni ko karamol soron da amanke comme holiday lem ngoto dini wo nyande sila ala karango la moy yamen kamen fue man kontan andamande
alla nyin kombo courant adanda la kombo len do la jankara mol soron do kamen courant ma do la kombo e don do fana na kara mol soron je kara mol soron Lamin adara lo ni no la man tara fe na sokon ala mu nekela
Lamin ite foyde malon ko lesinol be ke kar radio to
nga fine
e ko nyani mo Lamin
nga fine
ya mu na fonye
bir kabin mina kan tambita nteri maning Fatou tambite la sukala ala dinngol bebe siri be la moy ka
Fatou dan so am fana tambita jele ni subala la ngaje dinngol be jet talanta nen kili warol e be serin jelet
sa Lamin fanante ku kili wo ke no la ba Lamin bita ka wulo ko no nyinta mo Lamin
amandara fenela
ite dine ko ni man si yakaru lesinol la moy radio to e balon na
mu ne ka ke afonde ma nyara ni alon
kelentel jikot
afonde ma mu be ke
ite balon tel be jikritel ni man karambe ku kele yaje nata karana mbasa malaya ay tarije
par ñarande kombo courant ho findira kombo ide na rajede ni sonka bay ko Lamin ma nyata la wulo ko karam wolbe so dafa
ngoto wole nati bayo ngalle ni Lamin kuntala kombo courant o ka fa me kombo courant asototal ko e sisu ko no bari ni ko e sisu ko no be karangol di ke la radio lin telel to hani tele masoto to nyaay man tele soto da bongo bar radio be bulen koto batiri sanga ay si ay alamo
sa do kala nyaadi
ko ta o bulaji
ado kala nyaadi
kamun ke nyaadi
radio abe wala mo la be mona falaje
ibe la karandirol kala jele
ti talle be radio ko men ka karandirol
ila subjector baby jele baby jele
wala nan ka coco moy fa dan so wala ngombe tambi ka nga dinni wolde be ikadum bungo ko kala
ma asototal de
Lamin mala be kara wala de
bari laftalal ideal on ko inde every year second wala fourth
muna ni ko di ha ko nde ko folle sinila mba nde le sinilo ne ba
mba foke en koto wole fango yen wulindi yalo famo keta bat ñu fana bulata ko ko me yen nati jambi Lamin nyanta karana ndel be jiko be nyine ka ya bulay kara wulo kana ta kilar ya bambalo yo be bulaje koto dinni ngoy si ayala le sino la moy radio
wara ka munda kara mo man soro Lamin nyanta kara si so na radio
la sila le ayala le sino
dal ko korno ko smalo
kilar ya
be ngala ko momo sa mi do ni ko no kera
mengi bruce
ndelo ko la da ba rosa no radio ba no woro radio ni abe je be do ngamra do man dembe buljan yalla nyara nyar wo ko fendi mo la Lamin tayra ba rosa
bara te ko folo ajibe nori nya Lamin tamete
mengi mun na re
teku
bari ko do famo ke
ja image nañu nyambol si je wolle ke je kisigi ma no le kafun ka nyoma bari nyambu kino ni manya na ka finde ni nambe ko so la ga
ngalle lim de be nyambo do dilanna
nyara nim ko ridin fennat nyara nata
ko bari famo ke da
ngata bungono tammi bungono nyara ngando ko fele ko ke e baru nganda ni pelo la ndija
iyo awa
bungono bismillah bisu diara
pendulala yefungo tanka sina dolu tanka koro ta koro
Hello, viewers and listeners. Welcome to another lesson in economics. It's your friend, Alaji SM Youth, who is going to take you lesson number 12 in economics senior secondary school, of course. Today, the lesson we are going to deal with is going to be elasticity of supply. If you can recall, in our previous lesson, my boss was here, Mr. Dauda, who gave you elasticity of demand and income elasticity and cross price elasticity. Now we are going to concentrate on the last part of elasticity, which is going to be elasticity of supply. But before we get into the lesson proper, we are going to look at the objective we are expecting to achieve after the lesson. At the end of the lesson, we expect students to be able to define the price elasticity of supply. That is what elasticity of supply means. List and explain the different types of elasticities of supply, because we have type of elasticity of supply, and here we are going to be looking at this, the price elasticity of supply. Calculate the measurement of the price elasticity of supply. You should be able to calculate if you are given a particular measurement of price elasticity of supply, when the changes occur, how are you going to measure it, and the interpretation of the coefficient of the price elasticity of supply. When you calculate a coefficient of price elasticity of supply, how are you going to interpret your answer? Basically, this is what we expect students to be able to do at the end of this lesson. Now, let's start from what is supply. What is elasticity of supply? We say elasticity basically, from your previous experience, you were told that elasticity always deals with response of quantity demanded to the change in the price, or to the change in income, or to the change in price of other goods. So elasticity deals with response. What is responding? The quantity demanded. So elasticity is looking at the responsiveness of the quantity demanded to different parameters. But here, we are going to look at now the responsiveness of quantity supply, because the previous you were talking about demand. Now we are looking at the responsiveness of quantity supply to the change in price. That's why I say elasticity of supply is the measure of degree of responsiveness of the quantity supply to a given change in price. So when price change, how much will quantity supply respond to that change? That is what elasticity of supply is looking at. So now, it says in other words, elasticity of supply measures the level at which quantity supply of a commodity change as a result of a given change in price. So when the price of the commodity change, at which level will the quantity supply respond to that change? That is what the price elasticity of supply is looking at. So now, let's look at those change. The change in the supply, quantity supply to the price can happen in different ways. Sometimes the change in price can be less than the change in quantity supply. Sometimes the change in price can be greater than the change in quantity supply. Sometimes the change might not occur, in fact. There will be no response to the change. So this different response that the quantity can do towards the change in price is what will lead us to the types of price elasticity of supply. Now, first we say elastic supply. Here, we are just going to look at the literal meaning of elastic supply. So we will not enter into the measurement. We will deal with the measurement in the future. So elastic supply is says supply is said to be elastic or fairly elastic if a small percentage change in price leads to a larger percentage change in quantity supply. So the fairly elastic supply curve is illustrated below. What is it saying here? So here we say that when supply is elastic, when we say supply is elastic, you will see to it that the change in price or the percentage in which the price change will be less than the percentage in which the quantity supply responds. Here it means that the response in the quantity supply is higher than the change in price, which means that the price has changed. Yes, that's what causes the supply, quantity supply to respond. But the change in the price is less than the response of the quantity supply, which means the quantity supply responds more than the change in price. So when you look at on the graph we have here, price have changed from P1 and rose to P2, which we assume that it is a 20% change. But that 20% change in price have caused about 80% change in quantity supply. So 80% change in quantity supply, that is the response of the quantity supply. Most students, they find it difficult sometimes to draw this graph. Here, the only thing you need to do when you are drawing a graph of elastic supply is you have to make the graph, the supply curve flatter. So if the supply curve is flatter, so there you will be able to have the different changes. So here, this is basically what elastic supply is referring to. The change in quantity supply, which means the quantity supply responds more than the change in the price. This price has changed and caused the quantity supply to respond, but now the response of the quantity supply is larger than the change in price. So that is what we call elastic supply. So we go to the next one, which is inelastic supply. We say supply is said to be inelastic if a larger percentage change in price leads to a smaller percentage change on quantity supply. It is also known as fairly inelastic supply. So the fairly inelastic supply curve is illustrated here. So the inelastic supply is an opposite of the elastic supply. The inelastic supply is telling you that the change in price causes a small change in the response of the quantity supply, which means price have changed at a larger proportion than quantity supply. The quantity supply response, but the response is less than the change in that of the price. So when a change happens in that form on the supply, then that supply is refers to as an inelastic supply. Inelastic supply, the percentage change in price is always higher than the percentage change in quantity supply. As you look at it here, at price have moved from P1 to P2 at a change of about 80%, but the response of the quantity supply is only 20%. So which means that the percentage change in the price is higher than the percentage change in the quantity supply. So this is what we refer to as inelastic supply. We have what we call unitary supply. We say supply is said to be unitary if a given percentage change in price leads to an equal percentage change in quantity supply. It is also refers to as unity elastic supply. So the unitary elastic supply curve is illustrated here. Here is 50-50. The change in price is equals to the change in quantity supply. So when these two changes are equal, that type of supply is referred to as unitary supply. As this is illustrated here, the percentage change from P1 to P2 is 50%. The percentage change from Q1 to Q2 is also 50%. Such changes, such supply is referred to as unitary elastic supply. So we have what we call also perfectly elastic supply. We say supply is said to be perfectly elastic when an insignificant change in price brings about infinity change in quantity supply. So here, price change is not significant. It cannot even be recognized. But quantity supply has changed infinitively. That is why, when you look at it, the supply curve here is horizontal. It's moving towards the quantity, but the price doesn't even change because we say insignificant. And when it is insignificant, it cannot be even detected. So, but due to that insignificant change, it has caused an infinity change in the quantity supply. That type of price elasticity of supply is called perfectly elastic supply. We have also perfectly inelastic supply. That is the opposite of the perfectly elastic supply. There, we have changes taking place on the price, but quantity supply is not responding. So that is why we say supply is said to be perfectly inelastic if a change in price has no effect on quantity supply. It is also known as the zero elastic supply. So the zero elastic supply curve is illustrated as illustrated below. So when you look at it, it has a vertical supply curve, which means that quantity supply is not responding. Quantity supply is not moving. It is on the same position even if price is moving from P1, P2, P3 up. But yet still quantity supply is still positioned at Q1. It is not responding. Such type of supply is called perfectly inelastic supply. Now let's look at measurement of elasticity of supply. Elasticity of supply is measured or calculated by using the coefficient of the price elasticity of supply. But before we venture into the measurement, you have to note this. Here, when we calculate, we are going to have a number. That number is referred to as the coefficient. The coefficients fall into different categories. Those categories are what will tell you the type of price elasticity that type of good is. One, it says if the coefficient of the price elasticity of supply is greater than 1, then supply is fairly elastic. That is when it is greater than 1 but not to infinity, then that supply is fairly elastic. If the coefficient of the price elasticity is less than 1, then supply is fairly inelastic. That is, if it is less than 1, between 0 and 1. So we have, when it is equals to 1, supply is unitary. When it is equals to 0, supply is perfectly inelastic. When it is infinitively large, supply is perfectly elastic. So we have to put all these factors into consideration if we are measuring the price elasticity of supply. Now, when measuring the price elasticity of supply, we have a formula which we are going to follow. So we are going to deal with one of these formula called the percentage change method. The percentage change method is saying that price elasticity of supply is equals to percentage change in quantity supply over percentage change in price. Here, first, we need to find the percentage change in the quantity supply divided by the percentage change in price. The value we have, that is the value that will be the price elasticity of supply. But first, we need to know also how are we going to find the percentage change in quantity supply, which is going to be the numerator of our fraction, and the percentage change in price, which is going to be the denominator, before we can conduct that division. The percentage change in quantity supply is equals to the new quantity supply minus the old quantity supply divided by the old quantity supply times 100 over 1. So if you want to just say times 100. So percentage change in price is equals to new price minus old price over the old price times 100. So when we fix these operations, each of them will give us a percentage change. And these two percentage changes are the two we are going to divide, and that is what will give us the coefficient of the price elasticity of supply. Now let's look at this example. It says calculate the coefficient of the price elasticity of supply if quantity supplied increased from 25 to 30 as a result of an increase in price from 10 to 12. So if we are given this type of problem, first we are going to look at the changes that occur. Here, if we have our schedule like this, we have our price and we have our quantity supply. Let's look at the price. It says the price increase from 10. So that will be 10 to 12. That will be our second price. And when this happens, we say the quantity supply increase from 25 or to 30. So this is the changes that occur. Now, if we are to solve such a problem, let us not forget to write the formula, because the formula is very important, as my boss highlighted in your previous class. It attracts marks. So therefore we can say price elasticity of supply is equals to percentage change. This symbol triangle refers to change in quantity supply over the percentage change in price. This is the general formula we are going to use. But now we need to find the percentage change in quantity supply, the percentage change in quantity supply. You say the percentage change in quantity supply is equals to the new quantity supply minus the old quantity supply all over the old quantity supply times 100 over 1. So that is the formula for the change in quantity supply. So now, if we want to use this formula now to calculate the change in quantity supply, we say this will be equals to then, what is the new quantity supply? The new quantity supply is 30, because that's what in fact the question says. It says price elasticity of supply of a quantity supply which increased from 25 to 30. So that is going to be 30 minus 25 over 25 times 100 over 1. So when we have this, if we simplify it, this will give us 30 minus 25 is going to be 5 over 25 times 100 over 1. So 5 divided by 25, we say 5 goes 1 into 25 is 5 times. 5 goes into 25 is 5 times. We say 5 goes 1 into 100 is 20 times. So our percentage change in quantity supply is 20%. So if we have that, now we are left with what? We are left with the percentage change in price. So we say the percentage change in price, the percentage change in price is equals to new price, which is new P, minus the old price all over the old price times 100. So when we have this formula, we can now look at what was our new price. So this will be equals to, what was our new price? If we go back to our schedule, our new price is 12 and the old price is 10. So that's going to give us 12 minus 10 over 10 times 100. So 12 minus 10 is 2. So we are going to have 2 over 10 times 100. 2 goes 1 into 10 is 5 times. 5 goes 1 into 100 is 20 times. So our change here also is 20%. So now we have the percentage change in quantity supply as 20%. We also have the percentage change in price as 20%. Therefore, our price elasticity of supply will be equals to 20% divided by 20%, and this will be equals to 1. Now we have our price elasticity of supply as 1. What does this mean? This means that if you want to interpret our answer, then we are going to say that the price elasticity of supply is unitary. Why? Because the coefficient of the price elasticity of supply is equals to 1, indicating that the percentage change in quantity supply is equals to the percentage change in price is equals to the percentage change in quantity supply. So here we say that supply is unitary because the coefficient of the price elasticity is equals to 1, indicating that the percentage change in price is equal to the percentage change in quantity supply. So this is how this problem is solved. First, we drive our schedule to know the changes that occur from price and the changes that occur in quantity supply. So there we have our formula and we calculate the percentage change in quantity supply and we calculate the percentage change in price and divide the two and now interpret the answer based on the coefficient we have. And based on this example, our coefficient is 1, therefore the supply is unitary because we say when the coefficient is equals to 1, the supply is unitary, which means that the percentage percentage change in price equals to the percentage change in quantity supply. So that was the solution you have seen which I was doing previously. As you can see here, we have 20% change in quantity supply and the 20% change in price, which give us a price elasticity of supply of 1. We say hence the coefficient of the price elasticity of supply is equals to 1, then supply is said to be unitary. This is the solution of that problem. So I'll give you an assignment. This assignment, when we come next class, I will solve it with you. Let me read. The assignment says the deep freezers increase in price from $450 C to $500 C. And quantity supply increases from 800 units to 1,000 units per week. A. Calculate the price elasticity of supply. B. What type of elasticity is it? Explain your answer. Let me read again. The deep freezers increased in price from $450 C to $500. And quantity supplied increased from 800 units to 1,000 units per week. A. Calculate the price elasticity of supply. B. What type of elasticity is it? Explain your answer. So when we come next class, we will look at this assignment. But now, let's continue to factors affecting elasticity of supply. So here, the first factor we have is time. How is time a factor that affects elasticity of supply? It says, the longer the time, the greater the ability of firms to adjust to price change. That is elastic. That is, we say, supply is elastic in the long run, while it is inelastic in the short run. Why? We say, as firms have time, the more time they have, the more they can respond to the change in price. Because that is the time they can have to adjust their production. Whether is it going to be increase or decrease, depends on the direction of the price. If the price increase based on the normal law of supply, we know that firms are expected to increase their output to respond to that change. But they will not able to respond to the change in the short run. That is why at that point supply become inelastic because firms cannot respond quickly. So they need time. The longer it takes now, the more they can respond. That is why supply is said to be elastic in the long run, but inelastic in the short run. What is it? What do we mean there? It's elastic because suppliers can respond to the change in price in the long run. But in the short run, they will not able to respond too much. Due to that, supply is inelastic in the short run. That is why time is a factor affecting supply. We say availability of alternative markets. Say in situation where producers can sell their products in different markets, supply become elastic because a fall in price in one market will force the producers to sell in the other market. So when we look at it, if suppliers have alternates, different markets to sell their products, their supply become elastic. When a small change in price occur in one market, they will rush to another market, which means that they are responding quickly. They are very, very sensitive to the change in price. Due to what? They have alternates. They can sell in different markets. That makes them sensitive. But if there are no available alternates, if they have only one market, they will not be that much sensitive to price. When price change, they will still start to manage with the market. So on that case now, they will not be sensitive to price because it is one market. But when they have alternate markets, now they will be sensitive to price. A small change in one market will make them move to another market, which will make supply elastic. So we have cost of production. When there is an increase in the cost of production as a result of an increase in cost of input, suppliers become inelastic because only few goods and services can be supplied. So when the cost of production increases, so in that time, you will see that producers will not be able to produce many goods because cost of production is a factor that affects supply. It affects supply in a sense that when it increases, supply is expected to decrease because producers will not be able to produce many goods. Due to that, in that case, when the cost of production is high, when it increases, you see that now supply becomes inelastic because suppliers will not be able to respond to change in price due to the cost of production because the cost of production is high. So when cost of production is high, suppliers become less sensitive to change in price because they will not be able to respond quickly due to the cost incurred in production. Now, the fourth one here, we have barriers of entry. That is, when we say barriers of entries here, we are talking about entries in the market. When market is a free market, in that case, supply in that market become elastic. Some markets, they have restriction, but some markets, they don't have restriction. So when there are barriers in the market, the supply in the market can become elastic. But when the market does not have barriers, then the supply becomes elastic. Why? Because when the business in that market is doing well, the suppliers find it very lucrative to go. And because there is no barrier, they will all come in at the same time. So which means that in that case, they are very sensitive to price. The price in the supply in the market will change even more than the change in price. But when there is a barrier, you see that the supply in the market can be inelastic because other suppliers, even if the market is lucrative, other suppliers are not allowed to enter. So in that case, the supply will become inelastic. So that is why I say supply will tend to be elastic if there is free entry into the industry. This is because of due to a rise in price, the business become lucrative and many firms will enter the market due to the free entry. So this is what always happens. Whenever a market is lucrative and there is no barrier, suppliers will force to enter the market. So due to that now, the supply at that time become elastic. But when there are barriers, the supply can be inelastic. Even though if the market is lucrative, the suppliers will not be able to enter because there are certain restrictions that are avoiding them to enter into such a market. Thank you. It's your friend, Alaj SM Youth. Until next time.